All right. Thank you, Tim, for letting me know. I've been talking away. So let me know if you can hear me now. All of the equipment was working, but apparently I had muted StreamYard. So, okay. So until I hear, I'll go ahead with it again. But um, so um, let's see if we can get this back out. Okay. So let me start a little bit back for those that are also in here that may not have been in here before. So with this being a cab car, I wanted to save a little money on a decoder, but I wanted lighting and it would be neat to have sound. And so ESU puts out their version 5 decoder. It's their Loc Sound version 5, but they have one that's called an FX, and it takes out the motor control. So there's no motor control in it, but it simulates the motor control for the sound sake. And so I went through Streamline Backshop. They had a great price on this. I think it was $66 before tax and shipping. And specifically because they had a sound file for a New Jersey Transit cab car. It may not be exactly the one, but I think what they did is they did this special. It wasn't one of their standard ones, but they also didn't charge for this one, which was nice. Some of the special ones that they do, some of the um, ones that they set out to record the sounds specifically for somebody they charge for. They have a whole list that they can load on. So you want to go with if you don't have the Loc programmer, which is I think $150 or somewhere around there, you'll need a way to get the sound files loaded to this decoder because it comes blank. Lombard Hobbies is one of my favorite shops in Chicago. They also load sounds for you. So if you're looking for something like this, Streamline Backshop, Lombard Hobby are two of the companies that are two of the retailers that will load files for you when you purchase. I can't remember if Yankee Dabbler does it in New Jersey. They may, but I think that they charge for them. I don't think Lombard Hobbies charges for them for the ones that are listed on the ESU website. So, and I actually don't have the decoder in here. So the other thing I have right now is the Decoder Buddy, which is this piece from Nick's Chains. And it just gives you a lot of functionality because of the amount of lights I wanted to put in here and have sound on here and then track power. It made sense to get the Decoder Buddy. And I think that was, if I remember correctly, retail it's through Nick's Chains. It's $16, but I think it was $12 through Streamline Backshop. So I got both of these items at Streamline Backshop. So one of the things I wasn't prepared for to get all these functions in was how small the soldering pads are for some of these. And so there are soldering pads all the way around here. They also have the track and speakers are on the ends. Then they have some functionality down here, but they also have this pad. And I'm not bad at soldering, but I'm not the best at it. So one of the things I was running into is I have a very fine soldering tip, but the solder I have is a thicker winding of solder. And so a lot comes off. So anyway, what I had difficulty with was not that originally. It was the length of the wire. So I cut it down with some length, but when I was trying to strip the smaller wire, it was actually cutting off the wire and making it too short. So I had a couple of the wires that were too short. So without removing the actual wires, what I did to remedy this is these are for the marker light. These are for the marker lights up at the top. So what I did with that was um, I made sure they were even. I got them stripped, so it didn't matter how far down I got them stripped. But since I was having two wires going to it, I was going to have to work with 4-hole wires. And so my solution was to then cut a single wire and solder those together, which I did under the heat shrink tubing, and then solder the single wire. Instead of having two wires soldered at the same time to this pad, I have a single wire to solder. And so that worked. In the meantime, this one right here popped off. So I still have to get this little tiny wire back on, which means I have to be very careful to strip that and get that taken care of. The other thing I can do again, because both of these wires, these are for the ditch lights, both of these wires are going to go to the same spot. I could do the same thing I did there and pull this wire off or desolder this wire, solder them to a single wire and get them on there. I knew I was going to have trouble with it. And I knew my wiring's never great lengthwise and everything, so it looks like a mess in here. But I will get these taped or glued down to the top, and I will get this decoder buddy and decoder situated at the top. It's still going to be visible from the windows, I think, unless I can get all those wires down. I think the front end here, it'll certainly be visible through the windows. So what I did this week, which wasn't much again, was just did that repair, and now I have to repair a little bit more. It's like never ending. I fix one thing, it breaks another. Let me know also in the chat what you all are working on. Would love to hear about it. I know you're all working on something, even if you're not necessarily in the background, but it is generally bottling season. All right. So that was that part of it. On the flat car, I showed everybody the paperwork that I did for when that gets evaluated. What I decided to do was actually turn this into an article for our region, Thousand Lakes region Fusey newsletter. So I wrote up a more story-based copy, and so hopefully it'll get accepted. I'll do whatever edits need to be done. If that gets published, maybe, and it's quarterly, so every 3 months. So maybe if I've done that one and they've accepted that, I might submit what I did for my paperwork, which is in progress for this one. And then so that there's additional articles, because I wouldn't mind documenting it that way through this process to get the CARS certificate through the AP program. So from a 3D printing standpoint, as you know, I'm always looking for different cars that other people have designed. I always look for free files. I'm not confident enough that even though they're sometimes, you know, just a couple dollars, I'm not always confident about my printing abilities. And so I'm not sure I want to waste the money on a file for a car I might not even use. And so I've showed I think there were the open top hopper, the couple different box cars. There was a free file for a center beam bulkhead flat car. And so I printed this and super glued it. The parts where this bottom part is a whole, the detail, the brake detail, that's a whole part. It came with the coupler covers. Then it had the actual flat part. Then it had the bulkhead part, which is the two ends, the wood planks underneath, and the support poles. And then it came with this top piece to be the center beam for it. As you can see, with them so fragile, I got this re-glued on, but that popped off. And just handling it, these few popped off. It wasn't the easiest thing to glue this together. You can also see some imperfections here that I could probably get rid of, or put a load in, you won't even see them. But you know, it's a start. I also ran out of couplers. That's my last coupler. And then I have to figure out what I'm going to do for the trucks. If you remember, I found trucks that I really like to print, and that work really well, spin really well, and look decent. And that's these right here. And this came with some, and they came with a let's see if I can find what I did with them. They came with a little pin to put in. So here they are. Here's the truck. Not too bad looking. I think the other one looks a little bit more realistic. This is basic on the inside. Has kind of a little lip in there, depressed a little, and then it comes with this pin. The problem with this pin is it doesn't secure it. This pops right out. It doesn't secure it in here. So I'd have to glue it in and keep glue clear of this, and then it would be hard to maintain it. So the alternative is just a short screw, maybe, and seeing if potentially this would work. This will stay above it, and we'll just have to make sure, you know, if we have to shim it to give it some space, but we'll have to make sure we have a screw the right size to just get in just a little bit, maybe a couple of, maybe 3 millimeters in there, but also extend out. We'll have to see how that goes. But I mean, this was designed pretty basic, so it'll go right in, but it won't stay in there. So not a bad looking car. And again, you know, I print everything in FDM filament printing, and so this is not a bad looking car for filament printing. As well on there. It did come with some ladders, but they didn't print well, so I'll have to try and reprint them because they were kind of small. So that's kind of neat. It's a large car for the 2 modules I have, but you can see here against this, I think it's considered 73 foot, and that's 80 something foot for the 85 foot for the cab car. So yeah, so I put that together. That didn't take long to print, and the parts and everything, and was able to get that. And then, so not so bad. Then I've been wanting a re-railer to see, just to make it a little bit easier as my two modules are getting busier. And I didn't find many out there. I did have this one, and the downside to 3D printing is the layers. I really would want to really file this, because when you have a car going down this, it's going to bump just a little bit, and that may be enough for it just to pop off of the rails as it's going on. So I've tried this a couple times. I haven't had a huge amount of success with it. I have a flat re-railer track piece already on the layout, but it's in one spot. So it would have just been nice to have something to make it easier for me to reach over things and re-rail. I'll look for others, see if there's any out there. It works okay, but not great. Then I was looking for loads next to see if there are any good loads to print out, and I have those open bay hopper cars. So this wasn't probably the best thing for that. And then I pulled out I have a couple of gondolas that weren't 3D printed. They were just regular model gons. This was too big for the model gons. The open hoppers are, I think they came out to scale 53 foot. I think it's 53 foot. I'm not really sure, but this comes up about 3 millimeters of actual size short. It fits on the sides. Not a bad print for filament to have these junk piles. It'll be a pain in the butt to paint, I think, to paint the individual cans and junk and tires and things like that. But it's solid. It's pretty solid anyway. There's infill in there, but not too bad of a print. But I don't have a car that it fits. For the gondola, it's too short and too thin apparently for this. So I don't know if I can scale it. If I scaled this up for those open hoppers, I can get it the lengthwise fine, but scaling it up, I might end up if I don't scale up the sides, it's going to stretch this and look odd. So if I scale up the sides, then it won't fit in the car. So this wasn't the best solution for that. And those cars would probably take like iron ore or coal anyway. And so I could find a coal load or something like that, or put one in myself. I just wanted to try it and give me an opportunity to see what's out there. And so that was printed. Then the last thing I printed this week, and you'll see this is broken. This is actually on one piece, and this is for a coil load. And so it came with this piece that'll go on the flat car. And then I'm not sure why they printed it. Well, I guess I am sure. I think they printed these two parts separate so that you can have the detail on the top here. So you would have supports underneath this brim. So I'm guessing that's why they did it that way, but not totally sure. But it printed out kind of like that. And there were 3 of these that it printed with to go in here. Now it didn't print anything for a cross beam for these. So that's what I was looking at tonight, and that's why I have stuff out here. I was looking for something that would be functional and fit. I don't need these to spin or anything, and so I was looking for something that was a little tighter. I have this TC Train Group phosphor bronze wire. It'll work just fine. Um, but you're also gluing um, um, dissimilar um, materials. Uh, and so it would be nice if it could spin, but it's not a big deal if it didn't. So I was looking through my many bags of um, styrene, and if you get into scratch building, you can't avoid it. You're going to have you're going to have a ton of styrene and wood and bronze wire and any number of other things left over, because you're going to ultimately buy something like this for a tiny piece of it. So going through and checking on sizes, I came across this. I bought this at a train show, open bag for $2, and it had these six pieces. So it had them all, and I haven't used this. So speaking of that, this person cut just that much out and used that, and then eventually wanted to get rid of it. So spent $2 on that instead of $4 or 450 or whatever it is, somewhere around 450, 495, and I basically get the whole thing. So that was a good deal. And so I found that this fits through rather easily on here, and then I can just get it on there. What I was finding though is these holes seem to be smaller than these holes, and so as I was trying to force it through, well, actually I went in to sand it. So I have a couple of packs of these type of files, and so I have this round one, and at that fit, and so I was that fit right in, and so I come in and I was spinning it to file, and it was enough room on this one, but barely. So when I put pressure on it, it went through, but it took the piece with it and broke. So right now on the printer, I have another one of these printing, and I didn't print the other pieces. What's nice is you can pick out the parts, and then I just needed that, so that's what I printed. And it looks like it's saying that it has been completed, but it's not showing me a picture of it right now, and it's in the other room. So I will go get that one, and I will be more gentle as I do this, and I'll file these. And I don't know if you can see this. It's in the dark there, but there's the piece. It didn't take too long. It probably took 20 minutes to a half hour. It has some supports on there to make sure that those angles can print. But that's the nice thing is I just went in on my phone on this app, picked out the file from my printing history, picked the piece that I wanted out of the full print, and was off and running. And then as I was getting ready for this live stream, so I will get that, pull off those supports, file these out, get those into length, cut them, and get these on and paint this. I was looking for, flat car loads. The other thing I have, but I need something to like this to hold them, is from your pill bottles. I have those little desiccant containers, and they have a top to them, and then the container itself, and the top looks like a fan kind of, or a fan cover. So I thought, well, I could take those fan covers and have them lined up on a flat car with some support. And that can be a load. And I have tons of those because one particular medication I get for the 90-day supply, they actually come in retail bottles from the company. And so it has the Deskin in there for 30 days. So I get 3 of those every time I get a refill. And so there I have 3 more things to load. And before I had the printer, I just would get rid of the Deskin that's inside. Now that I have a printer, I'm going to keep saving that Deskin since it comes with it. It's not much, but it'll help with keeping moisture out of the filament. So that was the last thing I was working on before the show started, and I was hoping to show you what was going to happen here, but that didn't work. So for whatever reason, these are just tighter fits, but I could certainly take wash cutter. Let's put it in here. Somewhere. Or I could even do scissors. Doesn't matter. I can come in just to show you here. So then I'll be able to I'll get that filed down to on the ends flat. I'll get these on, like I said, paint them. And I mean, I don't even have to glue the end here, I don't think. Although that one's a tighter hole in there, but I don't really have to. I don't have to glue this end on if I don't want to. And then cut them down just enough to get them in there. And then I've got my load on there. I almost wish this was hollow so I could put something in there to give it weight. On the flat car that I'm having evaluated, there's absolutely no weight to it. It's all styrene. Hey, Tom, welcome in. Kyle, welcome. Nice to have you in here. So, yeah, these and Tim, I was really impressed with these loads. I like the detail that printed on these loads. So you can see the spikes in there, and that they're keeping the load together. And then we'll be able to paint this to look like the wire load. So it'll be a nice load to have. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for the New Jersey Transit load or New Jersey Transit flat car. Looking at the prototype, they've had there are ones where they have the concrete ties on them. They've had junk on them. There is a flat car that has that's part of the train. And Tom, I think I said hello, but if I didn't, nice to have you in here. There's a train that they have that's all for catenary maintenance, and it has that old style flat car with some sort of framing on it that 4 poles and a frame on top. It has what looks like a generator on it, and then the car behind it actually had the wire coils, so bigger than this, but it had the wire coils, so as if they're going to replace wire. So I could use the flat car for either one of those. But I need to have whatever the load's going to be. I need to put all the weight in there because there's just none on that flat car. it's amazing. It's because it just there's no room for it. So uh, so that is what I've been that is what I've been working on. Kyle, um, what have you been working on lately? Tim, have you been working on anything? Randy, um, curious to see what you're working on in art. Um, we, even though you've been working with N Scale, wondering what you've been working on as well. And of course, Randy's always doing N Scale with. And for those of you who may not know Randy and his work here in the Twin Cities, he has, I think he has both printers, but I know he has the resin printer, and he's done some fantastic um, in scale stuff. If you're looking at 3D printers and you can do resin from a detail standpoint, I would recommend resin. There's great detail in filament printers, but it's behind what you can get with a filament printer. I'm sorry, with a resin printer. So if you have the ventilation, you have the room for all of the stuff that you need, the curing station, washing station, the printer. The printers are actually generally smaller than FDM printers. They have a smaller footprint, but it's all the other stuff. It's dealing with the resin, which is a harsher, is pretty bad chemicals. 3D filament generally is built of sustainable materials, and it's generally they say it doesn't have an smell. It doesn't have a toxic smell to it. It has a smell. However, it's just safer, and so I have the printer in an open area, with a ceiling fan too. So if there ever the smell gets too strong, I can, or something burns or something, I can run that and it dissipates it. It's in a very open, what we call a cove in our house. So I would ultimately at some point like to have the space and the ventilation to do resin printing. So Kyle, you're a working stiff like me, where most of your life is with work and and then family life. I'll tell you that one of the reasons I've slowed down on my model railroading is I'm spending more time with the family, I guess. I have 2 dogs, and um, I've come to enjoy just sitting on the floor and letting them jump all over me and just hanging out with them. Um, they really appreciate when a 6-foot guy like me gets down to their level and they don't have to look up. So I spend a lot of time. I don't love sitting around and watching TV and not doing something and not accomplishing something. But I've had several nights now where I've really enjoyed just sitting down. My wife got the TV on in the background, and I'm sitting on the floor playing with the dogs. Has been pretty cathartic. Okay, good. So I hope the Mad City show was good. Um, we I used to have a friend that lived in Madison. He moved a couple years ago. And I go to visit my mom every year in Chicago when she does the International Miniature Show. And we always stop and stay overnight there. And I never knew they had the Mad City show, and it wouldn't have been at the same time. But I certainly know the area down there, and would like at some point to go, because all the shows and around here are much more like swap meets, and it's got the same vendors at every show. And so I'm wondering, and the Mad City show, I thought had, retailers and other things, and hopefully other vendors. I would love to check that out some year. So, um, I if I'm not building something from scratch, Randy, I like the process of getting things, ready for the layout, ready to run. So, um, as I've been printing the cars, um, part of the enjoyment of printing the cars is coming back and doing the couplers, making sure, and getting the trucks on and the wheels on and making sure everything works right. That whole process is more of a creative part of this process, since I'm printing already created models out. So I actually enjoy that process of making the cars ready to run. So one of the things with this one that kind of looking forward to experimenting with is, the if I'm going to do, if it's open lumber, it's open lumber. But if I do, like, packed lumber or paper, um, printing, designing and printing the covers, and using the inkjet printer. I've never done that. I would like to do that and see how that comes out. So another little side project to keep me grounded, I guess, in the model railroading world. Um, Tim, what scale are you? So yeah, Kyle, you got it right. You either have the time and no money, or the money and no time, for sure. So okay, so yeah, so this is a free file. Again, not sure you were in at the beginning when I showed this, and it is nice. It's got nice detail, except for the parts that I broke off. But looking at this up close as a 3D, as a filament print, it actually looks really nice. I can't believe. I mean, the stake pockets actually have holes in them. They're really tiny. I don't think you can do much with them, but they actually look like stake pockets. So that's really nice. And kind of the beam supports here look like metal beams with the supports in them and everything. So yeah, it came out nice. So like I said, it's a bit big for the layout, but it's but I like it. It was worth it. And it's repeatable, and I can be more gentle with this so that I'm not killing it. There's some stringing, but those are my settings that I have to get better at. Um, but it came out nice for sure. So, Tim, what era are you modeling? Are you a modern modeler like me, or um, what era do you go back to? So, so all right. So, just I'm sure I showed these to you, but this is a flush cutter that I got, like a pack of 10 of them, or they were got for me. as part of Christmas, but they're really cheap on Amazon. So I have them out and about. I have a bunch that are put away that I haven't used, but I have one for my 3D printer when I'm cutting off excess filament and supports and things like that. Um, so let's see. So these work great. Much easier to use than scissors for sure. And this is why I have measuring problems, because I measure like this. But don't do as I do. Do as I say. So 1954 and 1915. Okay. And a specific. I should always ask that when I ask these other questions, but a specific road, part of the country, specific railroad. Are you doing something prototype, freelance, something in between, proto freelance? So, and Kyle, most of my work is on the weekends too. I do get some things done. I try to do that, since, like I said, I'm working with, playing with the dogs more. I do try to do, 15 minutes here, there, or anywhere. So, like gluing, for instance, if I can glue a part, I know it has to dry. I'm going to walk away and do something else. Or, I don't necessarily have to do something with the model railroading. um, but so I'm really learning to do that now. I don't personally like that pace. I would rather be working on this stuff anytime I can. um, but um, but I know that that's not always possible. I feel better when I'm kind of completing things. And unfortunately, because of the glues and solvents and paints and things like that, and Gopher Girl getting migraines, um, I can't really do this stuff, with her in the room. Um, the other thing is, I don't want parts on me with my work. Parts fly all over the place, and I don't and our my dogs don't really eat stuff. They sometimes put it in their mouth and check it, but they know what's edible and what's not, and so they really mostly leave stuff alone on the floor. But I just don't want them to get like a piece of wire or something and get that stuck and them swallowing, and those kinds of things. So I don't do any I all of this is closed door. So even when I'm doing my live stream now, the room I'm in is closed, from so they can't access it. And I also do my day job in this room. um and so I have my door closed then too. So they don't really get to be allowed in here. So if I want to spend time with them, it's usually downstairs. And so I can't bring the model railroading stuff down to them. It would be nice if I could, because then I'd get so much more done. Because right now we're binging the show 48 Hours. That's one of my wife's favorites. And we spend, dinner sitting there. Some of the when some we tend to watch stuff. The TV shows we watch, we are we wait till they're streaming, and then we watch them without the commercials and everything. So we'll watch those, but when we don't have those, we're sitting in front of the TV watching 48 Hours. And I would love to be doing stuff. I can't imagine how many trees I could make Not that I need trees right now, but just that's one of those things you can sit in front of the TV and do some repetitive tasks. Um, and But unfortunately, that's not my reality. Um, so there you go. What else have people been working on? Uh, what the heck? Um, curious. Curious what other um, things people are working on. Mom, did you? I can't remember when if you were working to get your show. Is your show this weekend? Um, if so, are you ready to go with the show? So, Kyle, I got lucky. I got a pack of newish. Well, it was new Flex Track. I think maybe a one piece was used out of it. Um, I think it was micro engineering Flex Track, so it wasn't very flexible. Theirs is really stiff. Um, but I got a really good price at a show on that. So I always look for those deals when I can. You know, um, so the Tim, the Princeton, Minnesota, um, used to go through there going to South Dakota to visit Gopher Girl's family. But we've taken another route for many years, and so I don't recall going through Princeton, Minnesota, recently. But that would be nice to know to go check out the history display. Um, so what did they um, let's see here. So what was their chief export or industry in Princeton? Um, always love to hear that. Working on gambling the last few days. You gotta go try and gamble on the Powerball, something like that, so you have gambling money for the rest of eternity. Um, that's what we all need is to win the lottery these days. So, so uh, this is a piece of the microengineering flex track. So it's considered weathered as well. It just looks very dark. And for uh, for um, my modern railroad for the Northeast Quarter, I need um, the concrete ties, and so this doesn't help with that. But microengineering makes one with concrete ties, and um, Atlas makes one with concrete ties. And so I bought a pack of those full price on those, got them retail. Um, so I'll be using because I have to do 4 tracks for most of the main line for the Northeast Quarter. And they, you know, there's to try and get them to scale. They don't have a lot of the look isn't anything special to them. They have a little indentation in the middle, like the concrete ties have, but it doesn't look like much. It just looks like plastic. So we'll have to make those not look like plastic. So that'll take some work. But the other thing I was thinking is, can I print? Can I create and print the ties myself, and then buy the rail and attach the rail to them? So we'll have to make an attempt with that. I don't know if I'll be good at making something so small as far as the clips that keep the rail in place on these ties. But at some point I'll try that, because that'll be part of the AP program when we're designing the layout and doing scenery and track work and everything. But I only have one pack, so I'll probably even be paying more now. So I don't think yeah, like I said, Kyle, I got those. The only reason I bought them was at a local swap meet train show. There's somebody who had just a box of track and had a couple bundles of the micro engineering track together, and were much cheaper than they would be today, first of all, and then second of all, they were discounted. So the other thing I wanted to bring up was that I had not remembered to do so was these have this is going to pull power from the track to run the decoder, right? So how do we do that? So first of all, this already had the holes. It had some holes already drilled in here, or already formed in there. So I'm going to use those. And so I didn't cover those up at all. And then you have this one has these little metal plates on them. I'll remove these plates, and I'm going to try a method that one of the people, a couple people here in the Twin Cities recommended to me. And then one of our friends who's passed away, Larry Eggerling, who had, I think he called it Creaky Chair Models or something like that. His business, he's done a lot of clinics, did a lot with electricity, electronics, Arduinos, and just was pretty involved that way. And so one of the ways, so it was him, and I heard from two others with this method where you could pull the wires down and wire them to the wheels by using brass tube. And so he put this in one of his videos. And so I went to, actually our local Ace Hardware had the tube I needed where the hobby shops didn't. And this is 1/8 tube. This seems tight from the piece I was able to gnaw through and cut. I didn't have the right tools for it, and so I probably crushed the end a little bit. So I have to get the right kind of saw for it to work. So that's another purchase that's coming up, and I'll use the one that Larry Eggerling recommended, and it was actually through our local. He got it. He got the idea from our local Twin Cities NMR, Thomas Gager, known as Split Rock on the YouTube. But there's a saw with a really fine blade that's supposed to be able to cut through the tube. Now, it could also be some of the measure on here. It could be the thickness of the actual. So you have the diameter of the tube is the 1/8, and then the thickness is 0.014 brass. And so the objects in the mirror maybe appear larger or smaller than they are. It's hard to scale it here, but that's the tube. So I'm wondering if it needs to be thinner tube and still be 1/8. But I got to get it cut right. But you cut about a 1/2 inch, or you cut a 1/2 inch in. I don't know if you can see, I've already started with another type of saw. And then you pull the wheels apart, and then you add that on there, and then you actually solder the wires that'll come through here, come through those holes. You solder the wire onto one of these, and you can do one per truck, and it's supposed to keep this the tube on and wired, but allow the wheel to spin and still get power. So that's the method I'm working on, but I have to order that saw because all of the saws I have are not working. So that was the other thing to get this. I'll be able to test this with the wires without having to hook it up to the wheels, so to make sure that I didn't screw anything up and the decoder works and everything. So more work to come on that. I'm hoping that I fix the wire this weekend that's loose, and wire the track wires, and then the decoder, and anybody else can tell me. I probably wouldn't have a problem with it, but here's the decoder, the lockdown decoder or lockdown decoder. This is the decoder right here. These wires it's pre-wired onto the decoder for the speaker, and I assume I can go without taking these off, and I can just solder these to the speaker, but I want to try and confirm that. So I sent a email to Nick from Nick's Trains and waiting for the response on that, just to make sure I don't have to pull these off, then put them on here. But essentially, here are the pins for the 21 pin decoder, and there are the pinholes, and you line them up, and it's easy to figure out which way they go because it's an odd number of pins, and so it would go like this. These actually slip right through, and you don't have to solder them on. I'm sure some people do, but you already have these wired, and then I could put the speaker in here. I've already glued the speaker, so here's your speaker, and this all came as a package from ESU. You can get your own speaker, and I believe Streamline Backshop has them too. Comes with the baffle, and this is actually glued together to make it as big as possible from what they've supplied. And it's actually the speaker parts on the inside, and it bounces off of there, creating the sound, and the sound still comes out, even though it's sealed. I followed one person's online idea as just super gluing the plastic pieces together to create the baffle, and then he put glue around, white glue around all sides to seal the plastic together. So that's ready to go, and then you just solder the ends of the wires onto each of these tabs, and that's ready to go. And then we can get that in place as well. So we keep getting closer on this one. So okay, so are you how many excuse me, how many industries are you going to have, Tim? Are you going to do all of those industries, or just a couple, or just one? Excuse me. And that saw, I think the saw is about like $12.95 or something like that plus shipping. So I'll be able to squeeze that in. I just got to pull the trigger and order it, basically. So. But yeah, so lots going on this end, but it's slow going. Again, like I said, I'd like it to move faster than it's moving, but that's just, it is what it is, as my favorite hated saying. Yeah, it depends. That's right. Depends on room size. So my initial track plan for my northeast quarter modules is it's approximately 11. I think it's approximately a 10 by 12 room or area. It's actually that cove area that I was talking about. So it has one end open to the hallway. I know that the track plan really won't work because the radius curves are the radius of the curves have to be much thinner because of 85-foot passenger cars. Let's see. Oh, no. So here is, this was shown on like the first live stream I did a long time ago, but here is our cove area. So it's actually about, I think it's 9 foot and change this way, and I think it's 11 foot this way. So my idea was to fit it in an 8 foot by 10 foot with 2 foot by 4 foot modules. And having New Brunswick Station, which is the station I grew up with, which would be the focal point, would be somewhere in this area on this module. And then part of the prototype, it's actually in the city of New Brunswick. When it comes in, you actually enter the platform from the second floor of the station. So it's up high. I think it's approximately 15 feet off the ground, plus 5 feet extra for the platform from above the track. So there's a bridge requirement to the AP certificates. And so I'll build that part of it. And then I will want to there it go when it leaves New Brunswick going north towards New York, it goes over the Raritan River. So that'll be another bridge there as well. So I was thinking to create Raritan River as a feature. And then here are these curves are just way too tight. They're not going to work. But this is the plan, and to have, and then, and to have essentially, um, um, 4 stations. So one terminus would be Trenton Station. Northeast Corridor continues from Trenton to Philadelphia and down south into Maryland, down to Washington, D.C. But to cut it off at Trenton Station, here, Newark, New Jersey is a city that you get to before New York. And they have a station there. The headquarters for New Jersey Transit is in Newark, New Jersey. So I would build something there, and then I would then build tunnels because Penn Station in New York City is below ground. And so I would design Penn Station as well. And then part of the requirement is to have some kind of turnaround. And there is a yard called Sunnyside Yard past Penn Station. So I wanted to simulate that. And again, a turnaround there because of the radius isn't going to work. I probably need 2 modules here. I probably need to double this at least 4 feet to do something like that. But this was the original plan. One of the things I was testing with 3D printing, and I showed on previous shows, was this is a tunnel portal for New Jersey Transit, and to go down from New Jersey, enters on the New Jersey side, goes under the Hudson River and into New York City's into Penn Station. So the idea I had was, as part of the modules, either keeping it level on one of the modules or actually having it go down in the module, was to 3D print the tunnel. And so this took some tweaking and had a couple versions of this. I don't know if I have the old version somewhere. The old version. But I got it rounded the way I like. It has the sides that they have on there. And I was testing it, and I'm able to get the track in here, and the car is going to be able to fit through just fine. It'll fit right through there. So the idea here was to maybe have it bend around, and go down underneath and come in here, and then maybe underneath the module have it visible somehow, and maybe cut holes so that you can see it traveling in the tunnel. So that was an idea. This was the original track plan, so that I can have the 4 mainline, and down to the 2 for the tunnel. And then this actually, Penn Station is actually 21 tracks, but there'd have to be some selective compression there. So I was thinking potentially 3 tracks to make that work, and to have a small yard in there. So, okay. So about the same size, the 0 layout. So, but that's, I mean, I live in a townhome, and so we don't have a basement. There's some storage, but not much. Gopher Girl has a gigantic Lego connection that's starting to take up more than my model railroad collection. Because of the pandemic, I moved home. We used to use this room as a guest room. And I wanted to, she wasn't going to let me knock down the wall. So I wanted to drill a hole in the wall, or holes in the wall, so that I could bring in, yard and the Penn Station, maybe through in the tunnel being the wall, something like that. Um, I don't know. But that got vetoed by Gopher Girl, and I told her I can patch it up. It'll be ready for sale when we sell it. But I got vetoed, and then the pandemic happened, and for my work, it moved home, and now I'm only in the office once every, I'd say, 2.5 to 3 months for about a week, and then back home again. So this, and then we had an issue where down the hall from that cove area um, is our mechanical room, and our water heater in there was picking up the fumes from the glues and the paints and stuff. And I actually had acrylic, so it shouldn't have been that, but plenty of different glues and things like that. Um, it was picking up any soldering I was doing, and it set off their sensor for the water heater to shut down, and we lost our hot water. And $150 or $200 for the sensor later. They recommended that, even though it took a long time, it took years for it to happen. They recommended moving, solvents and things away, further away, because it is a safety measure, because it's the pilot light in the that heats everything, heats the water, is an open flame essentially. So it's a good safety measure, but for a while I didn't know what to do. So I ended up creating a workbench in this room. So I have my desk for work on the right, my workbench that I'm at right now on the left. And so basically I've moved into this room for my two main purposes. So that's where I'm at currently. I haven't built any of the modules. I was going to have somebody build them in the Fremo style. I haven't heard back from them. I know it was going to take them a long while to do it. They quoted me a price, but I don't know if they're able to get the wood now or what it is. I've kind of lost contact with them. But I can certainly reach out. I did get things built, but bench work's not a requirement of the AP program. And so I wasn't planning to do anything additional. Plus my tools are 40 years old, because they're my dad's tools. So a little bit harder for me to get those done. I don't mind paying somebody to get them done for me. So when I'm ready to go and do those things, I'll certainly make a move and decide what to do, because the idea of doing it modular is to be able to bring them places, number one, to show off, but number two, for if we move to another place, which we certainly want to do. So until you kick your kid out of the family room, Randy, does that mean like send them off to college? Yes, I know. I hate to say this, Mom, but I'm potentially, I'm potentially, hasn't been decided yet, but I may be applying for another benefits related job out here that would keep us out here, because it's not as it's much more localized. But haven't decided on that one yet either. I'll have to decide pretty quick, because I'm sure they'll close down the offer soon. But it would be more pay, and it would definitely be on site, unlike my current job. But you're always finding us houses there. Yeah, yeah. That's That's how it is. As my mom can attest to, here on the stream, um, both my brother and I moved back home after college, many, many years ago, but we did that, um, you know, um, 30 years ago. And I said I would never move back to New Jersey. I went out of state to college. I went up to New Hampshire. And I said, I'm not coming back. And I said, I wasn't going to work in retail. The first thing that happened after graduation is I moved back home and I got a job in retail. So be careful what you wish for. You may get it. But it's been that way for many years where um, sons and daughters moving back to their parents' home for a while and until they can strike it out on their own. And I moved out with Gopher Girl so we could be closer to her family. We were looking all over the country at different places that we would like to live. But she has a sister who was much younger, who she wanted to be close to growing up. I remind her now her sister's all grown up, so we can move again. But we moved out here for that. But that was after living at home, saving a little money for the move. And that's how I got to Minnesota. Gopher Girl, my wife, is from South Dakota. And so we're not too far. We're 5 hours from her family, 3 hours for the folks that live in Sioux Falls, but most of her family lives in Aberdeen, South Dakota. So it's a straight shot out. And as my mother would remind me, one of the most boring drives. And it used to be not so boring for me because I used to chase BNSF trains all the time. And then later on, there were less and less trains out when we were traveling, but it used to be fun to see those engines in whatever green they were painted in. So, yeah. We were all over the place tonight. Yeah, even though I didn't do much work, we were all over the place. So this was a good conversation tonight, and wishing for something to go. Yeah, it's a slippery slope, Kyle. But I appreciate everybody coming out and hanging out with me and checking out on what I've been working on and taking interest in it. And I hope that it inspires you to just jump in and try something. Doesn't have to be trying something new. You could be like me. That flat car I built was the third attempt. But I jumped in and I went for it and got it done. So I hope that it inspires all of you to do the same. And I want you to have a good weekend. Forget about work if you're working stiff like me for a couple days, and just enjoy your mild railroading and your family and your dogs and everything. And just say have a good night, and we'll see you next Friday.